Shalom, friends of Israel. I am Sal Litzabram, National President of Jewish National Fund USA. Thank you for joining us for our daily briefing from Israel. We will start today with our guest, Ruth Wasserman Land. She's a former member of Knesset for the Blue and White Party, headed by Benny Gantz, and she previously served as advisor for President Shimon Peres and as the deputy ambassador in the Israeli embassy in Cairo. Ruth is a public speaker, expert in Arab affairs, columnist for the Hebrew daily newspaper Ma'ariv, the Jerusalem Post, and the Beverly Hills Courier. Since leaving the Knesset almost a year ago, Ruth has set up a strategic consulting firm working with Jewish organizations, philanthropists, presidential candidates, and NGOs. We will have time for questions for Ruth, and we ask you to put them in the chat. Ruth, thank you for being with us today. Ruth?
So good evening, everybody. And I'd like to begin with Am Yisrael Chai, because I think that this is very important for all of us, both in the diaspora and in Israel. And thank you for taking the time and for inviting me to speak with you. I don't need to tell you, you all know that Israel is going through a very, very difficult and challenging time. After the first 2 days, in which there was a very big confusion, everybody, including everybody, government, as well as the army, the Shabak, the Mossad, the police, everybody's on their tiptoe, and you can see it, you can feel it everywhere in the country. My angle this evening will be the Arab angle, the geostrategy of how things look, and I apologize in advance. It's not a very pretty picture at this moment in time. So it's probably quite obvious to everyone on the Zoom that there is a mastermind behind this attack. I don't even want to call it an attack, but what happened approximately 2 weeks ago on October 7th, it's not even an attack. An attack is too small a word for it. It is something that has been premeditated and planned meticulously to the point of where each particular place, civilian place in each of the villages is, and how many people are in it, how many dogs are in each house. This is the level of minute details that the planning went to, and this was found in the bodies of Hamas operatives that went in after they were either caught or shot dead by IDF soldiers, the police, etc. But what Iran is planning, basically, is putting this particular event, despite it being horrific, the worst by far attack and atrocious behavior towards human beings in general. Even volunteers in Zaka have broken down and said that in 75 years of existence of the State of Israel, they hadn't seen this kind of behavior from one human being toward another. But this is only the first plan in the wide roadmap, let's call it this way, by Iran, planned by Iran. What the Iranians are looking for is regional and world domination. I know it sounds like a horror film and like science fiction, but I hope that I will impress upon you not to belittle this message. That's what they are looking for. It's a Shiite imperialistic kind of a focus, and they are willing to use anything and all means to promote their end. And their end, and this is an extremely important tool to impress the West with, but this is true. They don't care for the Palestinians one little bit. For them, the Hamas and the Hezbollah, despite the Hezbollah being Shiite, but still the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, working as their long arms, not to mention the Houthis in Yemen, which have taken a leap via Yemen, already paneling Israel with rockets, which have been intercepted thus far by the United States. But all of these, for the Iranians, these are Arabs. And I'm going to speak very bluntly. For the Iranians, for the Persian mullah entity, and I'm saying particularly mullah entity and the leadership in Iran and not the people, but for the mullah leaders, for them, the Arab proxies, namely the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Islamic Jihad, and so on, they're nothing. They're displaceable. They don't care about them. They don't care about their people. They don't care about the cause. It's not the ideology of Palestine or Al-Quds, etc. It's imperialistic domination, regional domination. And this is very important to understand in order to comprehend what we're dealing with. Now, the Hamas has said what it is going to do. It said, and it still is saying in Arabic, clearly, without any kind of politically correct or softness or innuendos. They say it clearly in Arabic, in a very surreal kind of Arabic, a very melodramatic kind of Arabic, but they say that the south of Israel, Gaza, is the first step. The second step for Hamas, I'm talking about Hamas. The second step is the West Bank, not the northern front, the West Bank, which Iran has been working systematically to ignite for years. Not 1 month, not 2 months, not 1 year, but at least for several months. Understanding the weakness of the Fatah regime in the West Bank, understanding that it is corrupt and almost disintegrated, plus the fact that Israel has weakened that particular leadership in the West Bank throughout the years and has more or less bought the quiet from Hamas, or so it had thought, by having Qatar send money to Hamas operatives. Please remind me if I forget to say a word about Qatar, which is very critical. But Iran has been systematically working in the West Bank to disintegrate the stability. This is what makes their work much easier. Like in Lebanon, disintegrated Lebanon makes a wonderful platform for Iran to work in. Disintegrated Syria makes a wonderful platform for Iran to work with. And in the same manner, the West Bank has been worked at for months and years with Hamas and with Islamic Jihad, paying them, training them, inciting them. Now, it doesn't help that both the Hamas and the West Bank, in other words, the Fatah leadership led by Abu Mazen, this is the Palestinian Authority, has in their school books horrific incitement. And I'd like to impress upon you that of all the countries in the region, even Egypt, which doesn't let anybody go near its internal affairs, has already worked on their internal books, on their school books, on their incitement. It's not perfect, but it has been amended to be more tolerant, less anti-Semitic, and less anti-Zionist. Even Qatar has improved a little bit. Saudi Arabia has made progress on the issue of incitement in their school books. Of course, the UAE and Bahrain. But the Palestinian Authority in Jordan, zero movement, nothing but incitement, which feeds and nurtures the people. So when we try to make the differentiation, and there is a difference between the West Bank and Gaza, of course, in Gaza is the Islamic Hamas. They hate the Fatah. They lynched the Fatah operatives when they took over the Gaza Strip. They literally threw them out of the windows after shooting them in the knees. And those Fatah operatives ran to the IDF to be saved. But in the West Bank, Granted, having a different leadership, not an Islamic leadership, called the Fatah, being very antagonistic to the Hamas, still there is a huge amount of incitement, plus the working of Iran constantly to try and incite its own ideology, its own agenda into the young people. And this mix, this explosive mix, is making things very difficult in the West Bank as well. Add to that the Northern Front. The Northern Front, I don't need to tell you, the Hezbollah has for years and years become stronger and stronger, a very significant Shiite militia. Iran has constantly transported weapons and know-how and funding via the Hezbollah to Syria in order to prepare its standing vis-a-vis Israel when D-Day comes. All of this, more or less, is known generally. What is less spoken of is the constant and very meticulous activity of Iran in Jordan as well. I remind you that Jordan is supposedly an island of stability for the United States in the region, supposedly something that is between Israel and Iran. But in recent, I think one could say almost 2 years, the Iranians have suddenly found and remembered that they have religious Shiite sites to take care of inside Jordan, particularly on the Jordanian-Israeli border. And I've been yelling and shouting both in the Knesset and writing op-eds in the Jerusalem Post and speaking on different outlets abroad as well about the Iranians trying to use the Jordanian-Israeli border, but also the West Bank, and trying to set up cells amidst, it's not politically correct, but it is true. Israeli Arabs, of course, not all of them at all in any way, but amidst certain Arab Israelis, Islamic-oriented Arab Israelis, in order to have them quietly prepare cells and wait for D-Day. I know it sounds like a horror movie, but that's what it is. And in cities like Nazareth, I'm talking about a small, very tiny proportion, but there are amazing platforms because of the rising crime and violence amidst Arab Israelis in the past decade or so, even 2 decades. More than 100,000 illegal weapons are running around amidst Arab Israelis inside Israel. I'm talking about blue and white ID Arab Israelis. This is the crime and violence scene in Israel. And those have been murdering other Arabs, whether it's Hamula, gangs killing one another, whether it's protection money and that kind of thing, which has become extremely almost a daily happening in Israel, to all businesses, not only Arab, but small and medium-sized and big businesses throughout the country, Jewish and Arab alike, but a lot of murders almost on a weekly basis in the Arab sector. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the platform for using this kind of crime and violence by external factors, and this is something that I've been writing and yelling, is very, very convenient for instigators like Iran. Others have done that in different places in the world, and there was no reason to believe why they wouldn't do this right now as well. And recently, the Shabak has declared or said publicly that factors associated in the Arab-Israeli sector with crime and violence have been found smuggling weapons with the help of Iran, not once, not twice. And this has been made public. This was very recent and just before, a couple of weeks before this particular war had begun. But I'd just like to stress once again, this is not an Israeli-Palestinian war. This is not an Israeli-Palestinian war. This is not an Israel-Hamas war. This is a war waged and planned for a long time by Iran. They know that to galvanize support, to recruit support amidst the Islamic world, the extreme Islamic world against Israel is very easy. All you need to say is Al-Quds. All you need to speak about is Al-Aqsa. They even called this campaign Al-Aqsa campaign, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with it. Certainly, the heinous acts that have been perpetrated in the south have zero to do with Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem. But they have called it that, and they know that it's easy to galvanize support in the world against Israel and the Jewish people. And they decided that they will do this, not yesterday, not a month ago, not a year ago. They've been planning this for a very long time, feeding their long arms. Hezbollah, West Bank, Jihad, Islamic Jihad in the West Bank. Hamas is also in Lebanon, not only the Hezbollah, the Hamas is also in the West Bank and in the South. So when we are looking at what is actually standing in front of Israel and the IDF, we have an arena for which, in my humble opinion, we need an international coalition. Here, I believe you have significant value. Each and every one of you have circles of impact, contacts, people whom you can speak to, impress upon. I have little doubt that the Americans well understand, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side, what we are standing against. In fact, it is completely clear that we are speaking about Iranian-led, I don't even know what to call it, because it's a call for world jihad. It's a new world order that they are trying to create. Just wrote about it in the very recent Friday edition, my article for the J-Post, but that's exactly what they're trying to do. And they will not stop at any cost. People are telling me that because of the tremendous presence of the Americans, and it is tremendous, nothing less, by our side in the vicinity of Israel, the Hezbollah will be deterred. They will not be deterred. Iran will not be deterred. Why? Because they speak a different language. It's a different culture. It's a different mentality. Everything, and I use a Jewish term with your permission because we are amidst family here, everything is kosher in their eyes to do what they're about to do. And what they're about to do is first, at least in their eyes, destroy the state of Israel. They were given more fuel for this horrendous act by the fact that we amongst us were horribly divided, that they felt that the IDF was not the focus of attention, but rather the internal divisions were the focus of attention. Of course, now what the Hamas managed to do is unite everybody in the country almost to a complete and utter perfection. Thousands of Haredi scholars are asking the government to recruit them into the IDF because they want to help. The spirit of people in Israel, religious and secular, old and young, everybody. I live on a moshav very close to the West Bank in the Sharon area, the undisputed Israel, 5 minutes drive away from the fence. Everybody, children, elderly, taking guns and taking care of the community, or they are distributing clothes, or they are fundraising, or they are driving soldiers from the south to the north. It's unbelievable. So in that sense, this is one point of resilience for Israel. And by the way, it's a huge point of resilience. If we don't have that, we cannot succeed. But I just want to stress, this fight is not going to be an easy one. It's not going to be from one front. It's already not from one front. The chief of police today said that there is a huge thank you to be said to the Arab-Israeli population within Israel, but everybody is still on their tiptoes. And again, I apologize if I'm being politically incorrect, but everybody is on their tiptoes. There is a huge, huge running towards getting guns, personal guns. Everybody that can get a personal gun is getting a personal gun. Every moshav and kibbutz in the entire country is having turns protecting its community. Everybody's on their tiptoes, but this is not an Israel-Palestinian war. Not Hasbara-wise, despite the fact that it still is, it needs to come out from that prism, and not militarily. This is not an Israel-Palestinian war. And if the world will not understand that, we have a problem. One last word about the day after. Perhaps some people feel that it's too early to speak about the day after Gaza. The American president, Biden, has said several times, learn from our mistake. We didn't think of the day after in Iraq. We turned out having a huge problem in the day after in Iraq. Iraq was a mess after we left. For 20 years, we've been bogged down there. ISIS came up, militias came up. It was a nightmare. Don't make the same mistake. And rightfully, the Hamas is not only the 40,000 armed people that are perpetrating these heinous crimes. Hamas is an ideology. It's a culture. It's a prism of thought. It's a paradigm. And this prism of thought has been fed and nurtured to the people. Plus, it talks of Islamic jihad and world jihad. This is something that, despite differences, is equal to Al-Qaeda in a sense, to Hezbollah in a sense, to ISIS in a sense. Each one of these organizations have different interests, but they have an ideology. If we kill 40,000 Hamas operatives, we do not kill the ideology. We cannot wipe it out. What can wipe it out? What can happen in the day after? Because we are not hoping to kill every single civilian in the Gaza Strip. That's not our goal, nor is it our goal to be in Gaza, to take over Gaza, and nobody else wants Gaza, least of all Egypt. We need an international force to sit there and to make sure after we do complete our mission that things are stable, and that the world also answers to what will happen to the Gaza Strip after we do what we need to do.
So, Ruth,
Final
thank you.
word, because
Okay,
one last sentence, because I won't be true to myself if I don't mention it. Don't forget Egypt. Egypt, 110 million people, strongest army in the Middle East after Israel, fed and nurtured by the US, is taking this issue very, very seriously. Very, very hysterical about one Gazan moving towards the Sinai Peninsula, because they know what is the Palestinians in Gaza, and they know what is Hamas, and they not having it in their territory, and they know why. My answer to that, we need to find a very delicate, convincing way to have them open up to women, children, and the injured, so that at least the world will not shout when we bombard. There will not be women, children, and injured that we hurt, because this is, again, not our purpose. But in the same way, we will eliminate the really big issue that may erupt, and it's on the verge with Egypt.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
Ruth. We appreciate your clear and precise presentation. I just want to remind everybody that we're doing this live. Some of our speakers are getting sirens, which means that we may need to move around a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions for Ruth, but hopefully we can ask Ruth to come back again, and we will have some questions. So thank you again so much. Next, we'll
Thank
move
you.
to Yoel Zilberman, the founder and CEO of Hashomer HaChadash, a Jewish National Fund USA supported social, educational, and Zionist organization devoted to supporting local farmers while forging strong bonds between their volunteers and all things Israel. Yoel has helped grow this organization to the largest volunteer movement in Israel, with over 100,000 participants each year. Today, we'll hear from Yoel about the extremely important matter of food security in Israel during the time of war and a plan for action. Yoel, over to you.
Hello, חברים, שלום. First of all, Ruth, תודה רבה. Spoke very clear, very smart points. And shalom to all of you. There's many faces that I didn't saw for a long time. And I hope that everything is okay with you. I'll just say that I'm a head of a division in Israel. If you remember, I grew up in the Israeli Navy SEALs, and today I'm establishing the mobile unit of Pekud HaOref. I don't know how to say the name of Pekud HaOref. Anyway, but in 2 weeks, I recruited more than 900 mobile cars that changed the phase of my unit, the change of all the unit of Pekud HaOref, game changer. Most of it for the kibbutzim moshavim that are far away from everything, for the next time that we will see something like we saw in the Gaza Strip. I'll just say, for the beginning, I think it's super important to say that we are just in the beginning, and we are in the beginning of war that is going to be hard, it's going to be painful, okay? We are not ready for that. From the, let's say, government and army perspective. Ruth spoke about the last year in Israel, the amount of energies that we invested on fighting against each other, okay? No doubt that our enemies used this opportunity. And I'm telling you, as someone that saw the bodies Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and I saw what's happening in the area of the kibbutzim nearby Gaza, it's something that we're not remembering in our nation, and maybe also things that we didn't saw in the Holocaust. Okay, my grandmother, we just met for 7 minutes last Friday, first time I came back home. She told me, Yoel, I hear that they did things that I never saw, even though I thought that I saw everything when I was in the Holocaust as a children, as a girl, like a young girl. I'm telling you what I hear that they did now, it's harder and more bad that I could ever imagine. And I'm telling you that I saw movies and I saw it by my eyes, okay, things that hope that no one of you will see that ever, but just to tell us and to remind us that we are all under attack. It's attack of the Jewish nation. Israel, it's just a symbolic, we are in the center of it, okay, but it's attack against all of us. And it's not going to be short. It will be at least, let's say, I'm guessing around a year, not less than that. And we need to be more united than ever, okay, in the last 75 years. It's not, when Ruth spoke about the people that they buying guns, people say that the instincts, it's the amount of knowledge that people carry during all of their lives. And you see the instincts, okay, of the people that live in Israel, there is a feeling, okay, that the attack is going to come from all over, from East, from the Israeli Arabs, from all over the place. So I hope it's not going to happen, but we need to be ready for any scenario. So I'm just starting with that. There is a lot to say about many things. I will just say that on this same situation, you can imagine that when the Hamas come in to Be'eri, not by mistake, they go and they murdering workers from Thailand, okay, and taking everything in videos to make sure that it will be all over the media, that everybody will see what they did to the Thai workers. And immediately we see thousands of thousands, okay? There is like airplane, traffic of Thai workers to go back to Thailand. And it means that 25% of the manpower that taking care of the best manpower today in Israel, that taking care to all of the food supply in Israel, okay? The food security system is about to leave us. This is the situation. There is areas for sure in the upper of the Galilee, in the eastern Negev, western Negev, and already you can see that also in the Arava Desert. You see thousands of Thai workers that leave Israel. And imagine that right now, 250,000 Mexicans leaving the United States, okay? I can tell you what's gonna happen. Immediately, 70 to 80% of your food is going to be destroyed, okay, without no one that will come and pick it, okay? And then the security system of the food supply, okay, becoming into a routine that can be very, very bad, that I can't tell you how it's can end, okay? Or what can, protect your food supply system. So this is exactly what can happen in Israel just right now. And I don't know if you remember that, how much of you was aware to that. But when COVID started in Israel, we got the first call from the farmers and also from the Minister of Agriculture. And they told us, listen, there is 4,000 Thai workers that just left Israel and 6,000 that can't come back to Israel. And the ship that's supposed to bring, the wheat or whatever they need to come with from Ukraine are going to turn around and not going to be able to bring it into Israel because nobody allowed them to get into the port. So here, okay, double what we had in 2020 when COVID started, double that in 4 or 5. This is what you're going to see now. In COVID, we recruited 40,000 volunteers, okay, with your help. And we protected more than $500 million shekel of fruit and vegetables that was almost destroyed, okay? What we did then, it was the first training for what we're going to have to do right now. We need to build divisions of volunteers, boys and girls from the age of 16, okay, to the age of 65, 70, people that are willing to come for at least 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, okay, to leave everything and just to go all over to hundreds of farmers, farms, and to literally protect our food and protect their farms. Actually, also many of their farmers, it's people that was fighting all over and got killed, or people that are serving now in the reserve. And I'll give you just one small story. There is one of the most beautiful Israel person that you can ever imagine. Was a very close friend of mine. His name is Eliran Almuznino. Eliran Almuznino is from a place that's called Kmehin. Kmehin, it's a part of the area that's called Pithat Nitzana, just over the border with Egypt. He was one of the first guys that left everything, okay, grow sheep and doing tourism, agri-tourism in his farm. He left everything, everything behind, and he was one of the first ones that got to the area on the west area of Gaza and got killed in the fights. Left behind him 4 kids and a whole, business of agriculture, a farm. Today, right now, we have 12 girls, okay, that took over the farm and holding the farm 24/7. Everything that needs to be taken care to make it still work and to make it, not closing down or falling down. Okay, the sheep, the greenhouses, everything that you can imagine. So take only this small story and double that right now at least 500 times. Okay, at least 500 times. And I can tell that I think that a week from now, it will be 1,500 times. Okay, so I'm telling you that we are in a beginning of a huge crisis that can influence directly on the Israeli food security system. And this is what we are working on right now. This is the main focus of the Shomer HaChadash. This is what we are doing. And Baruch Hashem, there is a lot of manpower that doing patrols. in most of the areas. We're helping to the family farms that are completely alone, but the farmers, let's say from the protecting part, let's say they are now a lot more safe, but from the manpower, they can really get into a situation that they are collapsing 3-4 weeks from now, not more than that. And so it's let's say it's not a marathon, it's a sprint that we need to take right now. And this is what we are focusing on. If you have questions, I will be happy to hear.
Yoel, you know, we've been with you before for a long time, you and your organization. Now more than ever, we can all understand the importance of what you've been doing. And we greatly thank you for everything you're doing. And please stay safe. We'll be in touch, and reach out to us like you have been in the past. Reach out to us as often as you need. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Finally,
you so much. I appreciate it.
Finally, we'll hear from Nissan Zahavi for an update on the northern front of Israel. Nissan serves as the vice president of the Margalit startup city Galil in Kiryat Shmona, a critical part of JNF USA's Go North initiative, attracting high-tech startups to Israel's north to boost local economic development. We know that the government called for the evacuation of Kiryat Shmona. Nissan, thank you for joining us, and please share an update with us from the north.
Yes, thank you so much, Saul, and it's a real pleasure to update you from here, from Kibbutz Kfar Giladi, 400 meters from the border with Lebanon, with Hezbollah. In general, we have a very tense day here in the northern border. Hezbollah, as you may know, it's the biggest terror army worldwide, funded by Iran, trained by Iran. And the scenario that everyone was afraid of in the last decade, it's that the Ardoan force, which is a special commando unit of Hezbollah, will infiltrate to the kibbutzim here in the Galilee. Eventually, the Hamas did it in the south. So here, in the last, I think 10 days, the Eastern Galilee, the Western Galilee, we have 25 different kibbutzim and other settlements adjacent to the fence, really tight to the fence, and everyone was evacuated, around 1,200 people. Of course, our entire community in Kfar Giladi was also evacuated to the Kinneret. I'm part of the emergency task force of the kibbutz. We are 15 people here with everything we need, as you can see. And in the last 10 days, there is a daily fighting between Hezbollah and the IDF. They actually sniped all the cameras that were on the fence. And now the fence is literally blind. So everyone is here in a high alert about what is happening hundreds of meters from here. The scenario that we are preparing for is when the ground entry into Gaza will begin, Hezbollah will fire thousands of missiles at the north and will try to bring thousands of terrorists to the border here. This is why the government decided to evacuate Kiryat Shmona and the rest of the kibbutzim here. We are alert and we are ready, and we keep high morale here. I can say that, you know, after the massacre in the south that happened, we also saw like what could happen here. So it's gonna be a real issue to bring everyone back here if we will not take care of with Hezbollah also. So it's not a Gaza thing. In fact, by the way, Hezbollah, exactly like Hamas, they don't care about the army. They just want to kill the people and conquer Israel. This is that simple. And we facing a very problematic situation right now because everyone saw what happened in the south, and now when they see what happening in the north. Right now, we have more than 60 villages, kibbutzim, and cities that was evacuated in Israel. I have to say that thanks to immediate support of some of you, we here in Kfar Giladi, we got the ceramic vest and all the equipment we need. We didn't get nothing from the army because we're not part of the army, but we learned from Gaza, from the Gaza envelope, we should call it the Israel envelope, the importance of the emergency squad in the beginning. So we have all the equipment and we are ready. I can say that after the October 7th, we decide to transform the Futex Center to a center to use it as a collection point for all the reserve that came to the north. We shared equipment and snacks and food to more than 2,500 soldiers, and the Futex Center became like the magnet of all the soldiers that was in the reserve coming to the Galilee. And our artistic committee, which some of you know that, we did the first concert, street concert here in Kiryat Shmona and so on. So the artistic committee visit places where the kibbutzim from the survivor from the kibbutzim from the south evacuated, and we're trying to entertain them. Or Nadav, she's leading it, and it's pretty amazing to see the power of a smile, of a small kid. And right now we have a phone call with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They apparently will ask to use the Futex Center as the international media center in the upcoming weeks. So you can guess where we are going here in the Galilee. We stay strong. We're missing our families, but we know that this is our house. This is our goal, and alongside what we are doing on our regular days, developing startups in the food tech scene in AgTech and teaching children about entrepreneurship, we understand that this on us, the civil society here. So we are also helping the startups here, to get immediate funds to help them to go through this very difficult time. Some of them we actually located in Yokneam right now, the labs and everything, and we are trying to keep it very sterile zone here. It's only the military here and us, the emergency squads. So this is like a quick briefing from Kfar Giladi.
So Nisan, thank you so much for taking the time and explaining to us. When we started supporting that area, we never really thought that some of the building would be used for the purpose that it is now. We're glad that it is being used. JNF USA is servicing over 2,000 people. Actually, with the movement, it's about 14,000 people now that we're servicing with food and necessities. And please stay safe. We'll call upon you again, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saul, and all of you, and feel free to contact me about any content that you need from the North. I'm your guy here.
All right, thank you. And thank you all our speakers for joining us today. As you know, Jewish National Fund USA announced a $1 million match from an anonymous donor. So we urge you to support our critical relief efforts at JNF support Israel. Every dollar goes directly to those people in areas that are in the greatest need. We will be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you for joining us. Am Yisrael Chai.